Hello everyone, this is Ruben from In-Depth Horror, and in this video we are going to look at the famous horror film classic The Shining from 1980, directed by Stanley Kubrick. I personally consider this film as one of the greatest horror films of all time, and not only because of the cabin fever themed story, but also because of the various techniques Kubrick uses to create a sense of isolation, dread, tension, and anguish. In comparison with most horror films, The Shining doesn't rely on cheap jump scares or other horror film cliches. In this video, we will discuss these methods more in depth. So, let's dive into it. First, let's talk about the story. In short, The Shining is based on the 1977 Stephen King novel with the same name. Jack Nicholson shines. He plays, together with Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers and Danny Lloyd in this adaptation of the book. The story is about the isolated Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies and its new caretaker, Jack Torrance. Jack is an ambitious writer and ex-alcoholic. He desires nothing more than to write and publish a new book. And accepting a position as the off-season caretaker of the imposing Overlook Hotel seems to be a logical choice. The solitude of the Colorado Rockies would ideally provide inspiration or a certain state of mind for the upcoming months. Together with his wife Wendy and his son Danny, Jack embarks on the journey to his new work. They will stay the entire winter period alone at the hotel. So the hotel itself has a rather sinister history. It was built on the site of a Native American burial ground, and the previous caretaker murdered his wife and daughters with an axe before taking his own life. So before the Torrance family moves to the hotel, Danny, the son, is warned by his imaginary friend Tony not to go to the hotel.
Tony, why don't you want to go to the hotel? I don't know. You do too know. Now come on, tell me. Don't want to. Please. No.
And when the family moves into the hotel, the head chef Dick Halloran explains to Danny that he is a very, very special boy.
I can remember when I was a little boy, my grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining.
The chef explains to Danny that the hotel has a shine with dark memories and warns him never to enter room 237.
Mr. Allen, what is in room 237?
Nothing. There ain't nothing in room 237. But you ain't got no business going in there anyway. So stay out. You understand? Stay out.
So from the start we know that this hotel can be good, and that Danny, with his special abilities, might be the victim of the evil forces that are part of it. But perhaps the biggest victim is Danny's father, Jack. On the surface looking maybe quite stable, yet his alcoholism and aggressive behavior tell us his shaky personality. The evil forces work on him in order to get closer to Danny. Stanley Kubrick's take on the story does differ from what Stephen King had in mind. Kubrick emphasizes more on the psychological effects of cabin fever, whereas King placed the dark supernatural forces central. Stanley Kubrick, this fellow here, is a film genius and known for being a perfectionist director. For this film he spent hours discussing and philosophizing how to create the right tone, which I would consider a nervous one. This film is a nervous film, a tensed film. It doesn't allow the viewer to feel calm or relaxed. Never. Always staying on guard. Why? Because the Overlook Hotel is evil. How we should interpret this evil is up to us. From the start of the film, we already are aware of the tense atmosphere. The reason, besides the enigmatic camera work by John Elkar, is the music by Rachel Elkind and Wendy Carlos, but also the already existing compositions by Krzysztof Penderecki. Take the opening of the film for instance. The music in this film is always filled with tension, even when we do not see any dangers yet. However, we as an audience are made aware that the danger is always present. The following two scenes are great examples of this. First, let us watch the scene in which Wendy and Danny are walking through the maze.
We made it. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
The music is so pressing, even though nothing is happening. The music, together with Jack watching over the maze, seems to be a foreshadowing of the climactic scene of the movie. As if the evil of the hotel already is watching over Danny through his father Jack, and trapping the young boy. In the following scene, we see a pissed off Jack walking towards the bar after having an argument with his wife. The music again creates this boiling feeling, like a bucket that almost overflows.
Me? No.
So let's talk about the set design, the Overlook Hotel itself. Many film scholars already pointed out that there is something going on with the spatiality of the hotel. Some detailed maps of the hotel show the impossibility of its interior. The whole building is filled with impossible rooms, hallways that do not connect, and windows that shouldn't exist at all. One might argue these are just mistakes, but that would not be in line with Stanley Kubrick's perfectionism. Rob Ager did in 2008 a very in-depth analysis of The Shining and highlighted these spatial impossibilities. It has been stated that the reason for this is to disorientate the viewer, never having a stable ground, a sense of space. This absolutely contributes to the sense of dread. Also, the hotel itself seems to be a character. If you look at the elevator, for instance, it's like a face that literally is spitting its wickedness. Also, the decorative rugs revert to the Native American symbols, obviously because the hotel is built on the burial grounds of the Native Americans. The acting in The Shining is great. The young Danny Lloyd really is able to play a convincing Danny Torrance. Both his unique behavior and his relationship with Tony are well presented. Shelley Duvall, as carrying Mother Wendy, does a great job. The way she presents her fear and terror during the final act of the film is very impressive. Jack Nicholson, as Jack Torrance, is of course phenomenal. His irritated and boiling personality is present from the start, making him an unpredictable character. Throughout the whole film, we see how his internal tensions are building up until he snaps.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
In terms of cinematography, Stanley Kubrick used a lot of the zoom, both slow and fast zoom in. Following shots and handheld camera work. To create a sense of isolation, we almost never see the character Wendy and Jack together. What also is striking are the recurring images of the elevator and the blood. This is comparable with the Soviet montage. So in terms of editing, Kubrick tries to create certain feelings and psychological responses from the audience, like the experiments by Kuleshov and the philosophies concerning film by Eisenstein. The use of hard cuts between different shots that do not fit together is an example of this. Kubrick's The Shining is truly a masterpiece and gets scarier every time you watch it again. Noticing the nuanced details makes you even think more about how scary the hotel is. Kubrick and his crew put a lot of work and thought in this piece of horror art, and I highly recommend you to see this film, and not once. Well, that was it for today, and see you next time in In-Depth Horror.